I am rank 16 in Summoner Duels Ranked, and I'm here to give you the top 10 tips to make you play better in SDR without spending a single orb. Number 1. Your opening is the lifeblood of your strategy. A good opening can give you a massive advantage over your opponent, and a bad opening can literally lose you a game. Before you even think about jumping into SDR, go to normal Summoner Duels, go to the practice match, and then just go on that map and practice your opening 4 to 5 times until you feel extremely comfortable with it. You need to be able to do this opening without having to think. Practicing this opening is going to give you some major advantages. First, it's going to allow you to recognize what positionals you need on each of your units. The correct positional can definitely make or break your team, and it will allow you to understand what positionals work best on that map. Secondly, it will let you get used to the new map. As the maps are constantly rotating, each is very different and there are different advantages to each one. So being able to understand your opening and how to do it on each map is going to be a massive advantage. Not only that, once you get more comfortable with your opening, it will make it much easier to make adjustments depending on what your opponent's doing to have a better position on that first turn. Number 2. Easily the most difficult thing in Summoner Duels Ranked is building a team. There are so many things to think about, but the one major tip I can give you is to understand how your team works. Now, what does this mean? This means, what is the goal of your team? That's the very first thing to address. Does your team focus on buffing up one major unit and then having that unit go in and destroy the enemy team? Does your team focus on hit and run, using Kanto units to go in and snipe and then back up into the safety of a far save unit? Does your team focus on high threat range and using that to control the box and then winning via score? Or maybe you're using something like Atari Carla and your goal is to throw her in there and cripple the enemy team and then win after that. No matter what your strategy is, you need to understand how it works and also understand its weaknesses. By understanding your team's weaknesses, you can use other units on that team to cover those major weaknesses, or you can use strategy to cover those weaknesses. And what I mean by that is when you're playing against an opponent, if you understand your own weakness, you can look for the units that take advantage of that and avoid them or play around them. For example, I'm using Brave Hector, and a buffed up Duo Dagger that's highly merged can definitely take him out. So what I need to do is make sure that my team is always positioned in such a way that Duo Dagger is not able to attack into Brave Hector or other units that he will save for. And if that is unavoidable, I always need to make sure that there's a way for me to trade so that when Brave Hector dies, I'm also getting something back. Usually with an advantage. So if your team is focusing on something like Fallen Edelgard, then you need to understand that she has some major weaknesses, like Armor weakness, Beast weakness, and things like Fire Sweep and Wind Sweep. So in order to remove those weaknesses, something you can do is like put Svallen's Shield in A to get rid of that armor weakness. Beast weakness isn't that big of a deal, and Wind Sweep, Fire Sweep, there's nothing you can do. So you're going to need to use strategy to overcome those weaknesses. Understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your own team is going to be the biggest component of your ability to win. Number 3. The first thing you do when you enter an SDR match is you need to recognize your win condition. So you need to look at the enemy team, look at their builds, get a basic idea of their strategy. Then you need to ask yourself 2 questions. What units do you need to kill, and which units does your opponent want to kill? So for example, in this match, their main carry is going to be this Valencia Paula, and they're doing a Vantage build, right? So this Paula is going to be able to kill a majority of the members of my team, and you can see that they have plenty of greens on this team because they understand that Brave Hector is going to be a problem for Paula. So they have the nice support of these 3 units whose goal is to kill Hector. And my goal is that I need to remove Paula. And the only way I can kill Paula is if I use Brave Alm, because he has that Wind Sweep effect. So for me, the most important unit on my team is Brave Alm, and their most important unit is Paula. So for me, in other words, the only way I can trade Brave Alm is when I'm trading for Paula. If I do not kill Paula with Brave Alm, I lose. Therefore, what I am looking for is a way to kill Paula with Brave Alm and then try to beat the rest of the team with whatever units I have. And my entire goal is just to kill Paula. So you can see right there, I go all in with Brave Alm to kill Paula. And even if Brave Alm would have died right there, it wasn't a big deal because I destroyed the one unit that their strategy revolves around, and Alm has done his job essentially. After that point, I can use Atri and Duo Dagger to kill their other units while using Brave Hector to protect. And this is another reason why practicing your opening is such a big deal, because you need to spend that time not thinking about how you're going to do your opening. You need to be thinking about your enemy team, what their goals are, what your goals are, and how you're going to achieve those goals. And you can't do that if you're still trying to figure out your opening. Number 4. This next tip is a simple one. Always do a warm-up match before you play any SDR. Always jump in, go to normal summoner duels, play one match. This is going to help you remove the jitters. It's also going to put you in the correct mindset where you're feeling very competitive, where you're focused on the match and the units in front of you and not anything else. And most importantly, it will give you a chance to practice your opening right before you jump into Summer Duels Ranked. Number 5. You are going to lose. No matter what happens, you're going to lose those 3 matches a season, and it's up to you to decide what to do with those failures. You can sit there and whine and blame it on whales or OP units or merges or whatever else you want, or you can try to improve and learn something from it. So reviewing your replays is one of the biggest things you can do to improve. You can look at a match, learn what mistakes you made and how you can improve them, and also you can look at your opponent and learn from what they did correctly. So you can look, see how they set up their plays, how they were able to beat you, and also see what kind of openings they had that you could take advantage of. The more replays you look at, you'll begin to see common tactics, common openings, and strategies, and then you can look at those common openings and tactics and find ways to get advantages and possibly a win in. Number 6. Watching other people play is one of the best ways to learn in this game mode. Personally, I watched Levinseti, Acris, and DTM streams before I even took one step into Summoner Duels Ranked, and the reason for that is because it gives me a chance to look at the meta and how other people are playing before I jump in as well. You have to remember, you only get 3 losses, 4 if you're using a bonus unit, which means that if you go in there and try to gain experience that way, there's a good chance you lose before you get a chance to make any legitimate progress. By watching other people play, you'll not only get a chance to look at their strategy and how they're applying it, but you'll also get to look at all their opponent's strategies and what they're doing. What this will let you do is 3 major things. First, it's going to help you avoid cheese strategies. There are going to be all types of gimmicks and cheese strategies that are possible on certain types of maps, and you can lose to that just by not knowing about it. So by looking at other people's gameplay, it gives you a chance to learn about it ahead of time and then think of ways to prepare against that. Another major aspect is it's going to allow you to look at other strategies and see what kind of plays they're making, and then think of ways to either counter those strategies or to take advantage of them. And then lastly, what it's going to do is it's going to give you a chance to learn from other people's mistakes. All those streamers are great, they're great players, but like me and everyone else, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to lose matches. And so by being able to watch that and being able to see what kind of mistakes they're making, you can learn from that and not make the same mistakes, which is massive when you only get 3 losses per season. Now I know everyone has different amounts of times they can spend watching streams or videos, but even just jumping in for a second and like watching a few matches, even like on 2x speed or just fast forwarding to certain things, will help you massively. It will give you such a better understanding of this week's meta and also the major units you're going to be running into. Number 7. Building on the last point, you need to be able to recognize meta threats. So there are going to be units that are just going to show up more often than others, and these are the units that are extremely powerful in the meta. So units like Brave Hector, Ascended Adune, Fallen Edelgard, Brave Erica, units like this, they're going to show up all the time, and you need to be able to answer these meta units with your team. So when you are designing your team, try to keep these meta threats in mind and try to think of ways you're going to be able to deal with them. You need to be able to understand in which conditions you'll be able to win those matchups and which conditions you'll lose. Now this is difficult, and this is something that comes with a lot of experience and practice, and so once again, jumping into normal summoner duels and just practicing with your team is going to do wonders. It's going to allow you to understand which matchups you can win and which matchups you lose, and it's also going to allow you to adjust your team by small amounts, adding different skills, putting different seals, so you can get those key victories over those meta threats. Now I know a lot of people are thinking, whale units are just too strong, I can't beat them. But that's not true. There are people like Aura, F2P, and Acris who are very well known free-to-play players who do extremely well in Summoner Duels Ranked. And they don't have extremely powerful units or crazy things like that. They just make very good use of what they have, and they understand the meta and strategies extremely well, so they figure out ways to beat those units that are extremely powerful. And this goes back to my last tip, watching other players is going to give you a chance to understand and possibly steal some strategies to defeat these meta threats. Number 8. The bonus unit system in Summoner Duels Ranked is easily the worst system to come with this mode. It's absolutely trash, they limit it to only 3 units, and because of that, everyone's team is much weaker. By trying to build a team around one of these 3 units, you are inherently making your team weaker and restricting what you can do. And so often, not using a bonus unit is going to allow you to make a much more powerful team that can win much more consistently. For the past 2 seasons, I have not used any bonus unit at all, and I've done extremely well, obviously. There are some risks with this, of course. So for me, I am losing 83 glory per loss, which is massive considering I'm only getting about 100 per win. So it's pretty dicey, but I'm also much higher ranked, so you probably won't lose this amount. Also, the other thing to consider is that even if you do lose 3 matches, you can throw in a bonus unit into your team to get that extra 4th loss. So you're not even really missing out on much, though you do lose more glory, so it is a bit dangerous. But overall, I would definitely recommend not using a bonus unit if you're comfortable with it. They make your team weaker, and they're going to make it so much more difficult to win. Typically, you're going to be able to fit in much better units than the bonus units, though sometimes we do get a really good unit such as Ashe on that first season. So if you're ever feeling like you're restricted by the bonus unit, just throw them to the curb and make a better team. Number 9. There are many hard counter units that are available in SDR, such as like Reeve, Loki, or Mikoto with their new Refine, and these units usually punish some kind of powerful game mode, such as like Reeve stopping the extra movement, Loki with like the gravity or the stall, and now Mikoto trying to block the Kanto. And in all honesty, I feel like these units are a bit of a trap. So the problem with them is they do a very good job of stopping that one thing, but they don't really offer much else to your team. And in doing so, they take up a team slot, but don't offer enough. So they end up being quite inflexible and often make your team weaker. Now, this isn't always the case. You can sometimes make these units work, but in all honesty, in the highest rankings that I've been playing, I've only seen Loki 1 time. I haven't seen Reeve at all. Mikoto obviously just got her refined, so I haven't got a chance to try her out yet or see her in play. But even so, I always think it's better to build your support units with counter abilities instead of putting counter units on your team. So what do I mean by this? Essentially, you're going to usually have like a dancer or a support unit like maybe legendary Ellawood who is going to be giving that bonus doubler, right? And instead of building them normally with like things like Wings of Mercy or like their normal kits, you need to put abilities on them that are going to help you win matchups. So for example, you can put like things like Pulse Ties to get rid of those specials. You can put Sudden Panic to get rid of some of those buffing teams. If you stack enough HP, sometimes you can hit their entire team with Panic and really destroy their strategy. Another thing is like ruses. So if you're using units that are using rallies, because you're doing like a buffing strategy, then ruses can apply guard, which can completely cripple some tanks and some offensive units. Another good thing is chills actually. Chills are extremely powerful in SDR, even though they've lost some of their value in AR. For example, I think chill attack is absolutely amazing. It can destroy units who are trying to go for AoE specials, and it can often keep units on the enemy team from winning those key matchups. Other great skills you can put on your support units are mobility options. Things like ground orders, guidance, stuff like that. They can often allow you to make plays that you wouldn't be able to, and sometimes it can catch your opponent off guard and you can get a win off of that. So while I'm not saying to never use Reeve, Loki, or Mikoto, I guess, what I am saying is that often it is better to use your dancer or your support units to their full capability and to build them to offer that support while doing other things. It essentially allows you to combine team slots into one and make your team more powerful overall. Number 10. The timer is one of the most overlooked systems in Summer Duels Ranked, and it's one of the most important. So essentially the way it works is you get 30 seconds per turn and then you get bonus time, and that bonus time will build up if you make your moves quickly. And this is one of the reasons why practicing your opening is such an important tip, because if you make those early turns quickly, you'll actually build up bonus time, which you could then use later on when you actually need to think. Not only will practicing your opening allow you to have time to think about the enemy team and recognize your win conditions, it will also give you bonus time, which is extremely important when you're coming down to those really key moments that decide if you win or not. Having the time to think all your moves out later on will definitely allow you to not overlook plays and secure wins. So how do you take advantage of this time mechanic and allow it to build up so that you have time when you need it? Practice. Practice is the number one thing you're going to need to do. By practicing, not only will you be able to make your moves more quickly, you'll also be able to learn some of the tactics and strategies of enemies' teams and recognize them. So when you recognize those strategies, you don't have to think about them as much. You'll be able to see it, recognize what they're doing, and then focus on what you're doing, which then gives you more time to think your plays through and create a better strategy. Because in those high-end matches that are super tense, you need as much time as possible to think through all the different plays and what could happen. I would say the clock is one of the most important mechanics, and I feel like it's one of the things that stresses a lot of people out because you have such a limited time to think about what you're doing. But if you properly plan ahead and take advantage of practice and a good opening, you'll have more time when you need it, which is definitely what you're going to need in order to beat some of the more difficult teams. Those are my top 10 tips to become better at Summer Duels Ranked without spending a single orb. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe. Also make sure to drop any tips you have for Summer Duels Ranked down below. Also drop a comment down below letting me know if any of my tips helped you out, and I'll catch everyone later for more Fire Emblem Heroes. See you then.